setting the stage for your Georgia Saturday. This is DawgNation GameDay, brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors, Kroger, R.S. Andrews, and Jittery Joe's Coffee. Now here's your host, Kaylee Mansell.
Coming to you live from the heart of enemy territory, I'm Kaylee Mansell with Jeff Sentell. This is DawgNation GameDay. We have made it to Jordan-Hare Stadium. Jeff, I don't know about you, but I've talked to some Dawg fans this week, just reading into what people had to say. There seems to be a lot of worry about this game, even though it feels like Georgia should have the advantage in every category. It's something about coming here. Do you feel like the concerns are valid? Is that where your head's at?
I kind of feel like, Kaylee, Nate, welcome to Jordan-Hare.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like ghosts of Auburn teams past are what does this, because traditionally, covering this game for as many years as I have, even as a student, it was really hard to play here. And what I mean by that is a lot of people would say if you want to win in Auburn, you better be 14 points better, and that way you might squeak away with a nail-biter type win. Really hard to play here. Georgia has a lot of tradition here. But, Kaylee, when you look at recent history, Auburn is not Auburn. I looked through the history books. I think the last 3 or 4 seasons against Power 4 teams, Auburn is averaging 1 win per year here, and that's usually a 1-3, a 1-4. That's against SEC teams. I mean, a lot of teams beat them here last year, 1-4. They lost to Cal here. It's kind of not the same place, but, man, can it still get cranked up on a Saturday night?
Yeah, so I had the chance to come here 2 years ago. It was not a night game. Auburn's been on the road for their last 2 SEC games. People are already coming into the stands. You know, what is it about Jordan-Hare that makes it so difficult to play here? Is it strictly fan atmosphere, or do you think there's a mental aspect to it as well?
I think Auburn has always had really good football teams. They've always had really good lines of scrimmage, and they just play better in front of their home fans. Even years when they weren't that good, in this Saban era, they would give Nick Saban fits right here, and it'd always be a tight game. I think they do a lot of things well. I think the stadium is very old school. They're right on top of you. Like, Georgia will come right out of here onto the field, and it feels like a very much a 1980s, 1990s type moment. But they do so many things well here. They get loud. They support Auburn. I think they were the first people to do the swag surf, and they do it really well. And I'll tell you, right over there, that student section, that player section right there, it gets rowdy.
Yeah, so even though Auburn doesn't necessarily have the record nor the ranking, if Georgia can come into this atmosphere tonight, get a win, it makes a statement. Doesn't have to be a blowout. I think if you escape this game just coming out on the victorious side, that says a lot about where the state of this Georgia program is at. And we're going to try to use that to go through everything, figure out where does Georgia have the advantage. What is this Auburn offensive identity? What are the challenges in this game? That's what we're going to try to tackle here on today's DawgNation GameDay. Why don't we show you what we've got going on? So we're going to talk about the pressure aspect of this game, not just from the Georgia standpoint, but also the Auburn standpoint. We're going to talk a little bit of Tigers, Jackson Arnold, their receiving core. We'll do my Mansell's matchup of the week. At this point, I could just continue to make it UGA pass rush until we finally get that performance we've been waiting on. Then we're going to bring in our good friend Rodrigo Blankenship, who's going to help us set the tone and talk about what it's like to be a Georgia player coming into this tough atmosphere, even just playing on the road in the SEC. Then, of course, we'll have to have Sentell's intel. We'll really hone in on the Georgia offense and behind the recruiting numbers. What does the talent gap look like between these teams, if there is one? And then we're going to bring on our good friend Cody Chapins, who's going to do a live boots on the ground with us, talk about what he's been seeing that's taking place behind us. Then stats that would satisfy is back. What are the numbers that we want to see on that final stat sheet at the end of the game? Then we'll have Connor Riley. He joined me in studio earlier this week. We talked about a multitude of things, so we'll see him towards the end. Then we'll do our keys to the game, and then, of course, we'll have our amazing hype video also made by Cody Chapins, and then we'll get into our final thoughts. Typically, I'm going right into the opponent preview, but I do think that there is something that needs to be addressed within this game, and that's where the pressure lies with each team. I feel like it's very different because for Georgia, you already have one loss in the SEC. You have a really tough stretch of games, so the pressure to win here sets you up for better success in the future with that schedule. And you don't want to get in a position to where you're in a 2-loss type scenario and then you have to win out. But for Auburn, it's totally different. Already have the 2 SEC losses. The pressure is really internal for them because it feels like if Hugh Freeze doesn't get that signature win tonight, the hot seat's going to be hotter than ever. So just looking at the 2 different circumstances of the teams and the programs, Which team would you say is under more pressure right now?
Well, I would definitely say it's Auburn because they just haven't done what Georgia has. And if they're looking at a seismic change with their program, Kaylee, in the media room, the photo room right here, I spent some of my career in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
I know a lot of reporters, I know a lot of writers, I know a lot of photographers, and they tend to think, and a lot of the people that were down there, they tend to think that this is not a pink slip game for Hugh Freeze, but it's going to get there really close. So they got a couple of games. I think they got to win one of them. I think they got Missouri still to come. They've got Georgia here today. They need to see improvement. The main thing they're talking about is really a lack of confidence in what's going on. They're not running the ball as they should. The ball is staying in the hands of Jackson Arnold a lot.
Yeah.
He's not getting rid of the ball. They're giving up sacks. They're getting in negative plays. And that's one of those things. I bet if you ask most Georgia fans, they think this two-game stretch will decide where Georgia goes, what type of year it has. I think it's going to be very hard, even though we see Ole Miss struggling today with Washington State, for Georgia to come out of this 2-0. 1-1, what does that feel like? Unless Ole Miss continues to play like they did today. I think these are crucial games where Georgia goes. Is this going to be a tier below a playoff team?
Yeah.
Or is this another Georgia playoff team?
I have to say, I agree with you. I think that the pressure lies more with Auburn in this game, but a lot of that pressure was brought on by Hugh Freeze himself. A lot of the press conferences that he was involved in last year, he kept saying, you just need to wait. This next team is going to be the team. They've underperformed so far this season. I think you could say the same thing about their quarterback, Jackson Arnold. They brought him in from Oklahoma. I think that they thought he was going to be the savior of this program along with the receiving core that they've had, but as we mentioned, underperformed. When we look at Jackson Arnold so far this year, the stats are nowhere close to what he did at the Oklahoma program. We'll show it to you here on the screen. Look, just averaging a little over 169 passing yards per game. 5 touchdowns to no interceptions. We're going to circle back to that. Around 38.4 rushing yards per game, just averaging 2.7 yards per carry with another 5 rushing touchdowns. But here's the thing, the 0 interceptions, that was a number that really jumped off the page to me, but then you look at the sack count, taking 21 sacks just this year. This is someone that would rather take the sack than turn the ball over, but again, Auburn coming off of a bye week. I feel like we could see a more energetic, different Jackson Arnold tonight. And Kirby Smart actually spoke to his talents earlier this week.
First thing is his athleticism. You know, he's had 2 or 3 plays that were broken plays or, plays that maybe scramble plays, RPOs that were designed to be thrown, that maybe the look changed, and he takes off running and he runs for 60 yards. He runs for 70 yards. He doesn't just run for like 8-9 yards and go down. I mean, he runs like a running back. He runs over you, through you, around you, speed. They run gap schemes with him. They run perimeter runs with him. And then probably the toughest thing to defend is when he drops back and he ends up taking off running. So he's a weapon, and they've got weapons around him in terms of the ability to throw the ball downfield.
As Kirby pointed out there, one of the things that we've noted all this season, Auburn 2 one-touchdown loss games could have easily gone the other way. I stand by the fact that I do believe good teams find ways to win those games, but in just bringing in Jackson Arnold, seeing what he's done this far, I mean, was this the expectation or was the bar set too high?
Yeah, it's interesting, Kaylee, because it's going to look a little bit like Georgia next year. What I mean by that is they have a 5-star quarterback that's kind of waiting in the wings as everybody thinks that's the next tier of Auburn football. You look at the offense for Auburn this year, and if they're going to run an RPO game, a real RPO game, I think Jackson Arnold's the guy. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to sit back and you're going to throw it 40 times with a little bit of mobility at quarterback, I think Deuce Knight is the guy. The one thing that, we're going to churn up all these stats is I think one of the things in this game, and we got so many keys, Kaylee, it does come down to simply running the ball. Mm-hmm. The Auburn people just want to see him run the ball. They don't want to see Jackson Arnold put his stamp on the game, and I think Kirby had it right in trying to magnify something for DawgNation there. Yeah, he's given up so many sacks. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns. Kaylee, when he's given up so many sacks this year, and I still see he's averaging 2.7 yards per carry, this is a guy that's lethal with his legs. And you remember the last few years, Auburn's quarterbacks in this stadium have given the Dogs fits. They're having one explosive run really every time. And I think, when people wonder about this game, Kaylee, and that's in respect to your early question, they remember how Brock Bowers had to walk on water in that game in 2023. And then maybe a couple years prior to that, 2019, when Kirby dropped that HBTFD comment, because he knows just win out of here. Just get a win out of here, survive and advance.
I do think, though, even though Jackson Arnold has significantly underperformed, the advantage lies with a dual-threat quarterback. This is a very different offense than what Georgia has faced so far, especially looking at those Tennessee and Alabama games. You think high-powered offenses, throwing the ball downfield, being really aggressive. Jackson Arnold isn't necessarily that, but when you've got a guy who's just as good on the ground as he is in the air, it's so hard to prepare for that. I don't care what level of football it is, high school, college, NFL, everybody will tell you that you can't really replicate that in practice when having to go up against a dual-threat guy like Jackson Arnold.
Like, this is kind of the movable force versus the resistible object, Kaylee, because Georgia can't get to the quarterback. Alabama can't get to the quarterback either, really. They keep winning. And then Auburn can't protect their quarterback. Nobody can for more than 4 or 5 seconds like that. So I don't know how Georgia fans would feel if they lose this game today and they still don't get any pressure on Jackson Arnold. Conversely, I know DawgNation would love to see a win, and they don't care how it happens, maybe if they only get 1 or 2 sacks. But they keep moving Jackson Arnold off his launch point. They keep making him shuffle his feet and not get comfortable. We've already seen he is pre-wired to look for it. If it's not there, he's going to scoot.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of athletes Georgia has at linebacker that can run with him.
So I know that you mentioned the Auburn run game, but I think one thing that's been really confusing to me is, apart from maybe Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, I feel like Auburn should have the best duo wide receiver core in the SEC with Eric Singleton Jr. and Cam Coleman. That has not been the case this year. Jackson Arnold has really struggled to get the ball to those two, and that was something even Kirby Smart mentioned in that last clip about Jackson Arnold was the talented receivers that they've had. But take Cam Coleman, for example, preseason SEC first team. He only has 255 yards on the year, 2 touchdowns, and 29 targets. This is not what I expected from this Auburn offense at this point in the season. At some point, those two have to start clicking, and I can't help but wonder if that begins tonight.
Well, we've had enough of a sample size to see that that's going to be an effort. You did see Auburn try to force feed the ball to Cam Coleman against Oklahoma. I'll tell you this, Kaylee, this is off of a talent personnel side. NFL scouts came through and looked at Auburn, Cam Coleman's freshman year, his freshman year before he even played. This is spring practice his freshman year. And they said, that's your best NFL prospect on the team, and he's a first rounder. And that was before his freshman season. This was in like April, May of his early enrollee type year. You hear the Auburn family getting loud right now?
It's Cam Newton.
Cam Newton is here.
Spot him from a mile away.
Cam juice in his hand, probably. You just see, Kaylee, that guy's an absolute dude. Lots of offensive coordinators in the SEC. They look at that stat line, man, and they go, you know what, he'd have about 60 targets right now on my football team.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the Auburn offense. We're going to talk about their offensive line here in just a minute with my Mansell's matchup. There he is. I'm surprised his hat isn't a little bit bigger, but maybe it's just because we're so far that I really can't see it. We'll have more close-ups of Cam Newton, I'm sure, who's having his jersey retired tonight. I'm sure you heard. So we're in enemy territory right now. Really grateful that they allowed us to be on the field. But next week, we'll be back in Athens. Of course, that means we'll be at the downtown Jittery Joe's location. I know a lot of people are coming in for the Georgia-Ole Miss matchup. Hopefully you come and join me at 1:30. If not, you can join us live. And even if you don't have time to come see us on game day, make sure to check out your local Jittery Joe's, not just in Athens. They have locations all across the state to make it easier on yourself. Download the Jittery Joe's app. That way you get a percentage off of your drink as well as skip the line. And believe me, if you're ever coming to Athens on game day, that's going to be so helpful because the line is always out the door. So can't wait to be back in our home spot. And for more information, visit jitteryjoes.com or download the app. All right, so here in just a minute, we're going to have Rodrigo Blankenship come on. But while I've got Jeff here, what we're going to do is my Mansell's matchup. Last week, it was the Georgia pass rush versus the Kentucky offensive line. I'm doubling down. I'm going Georgia pass rush versus Auburn offensive line because we said it before, 21 sacks given up on the year, also 48 quarterback pressures allowed, 32 quarterback hurries allowed. 22 of Auburn's 44 penalties this year have come from their offensive line. And then you look on the other hand, Georgia's had more quarterback pressures, 63, more quarterback hurries with 50, just 7 sacks on the year. But we look at this as an underperformance of the Georgia pass rush. And I can't help but wonder if we don't see an improvement from them tonight, Is that it for them, or does this just prove that, maybe they've been holding out on us a little bit?
I think it's going to prove that this is philosophy for this team, point blank, period. Georgia wants to maintain their assignments, their gap integrity. They want to fill rush lanes, and they don't want to give quarterback free yards up the middle. I think this is just what you're going to see with this team. I believe once you get 2 or 3 SEC games in, what you have is what you have, at least philosophy-wise. I know Georgia's got a lot of young players that I think will be a lot better. Another 3 or 4 more games under their belt. But I think if Georgia doesn't get to Jackson Arnold and have 5 sacks and get kind of those stats a little bit wealthier, you're just going to look at it and say, that's not what Georgia's trying to do this year. They're trying to affect the quarterback. Kaylee, the first thing I would do, if there's not a worry about the stats, I want to see pressures.
Yeah.
I want to see hurries, because Georgia could get 1 or 2 sacks and that not look like what Oklahoma did. But if you hurry him 8 or 9 times, you pressure him 5 or 6 times, I think that's how you're going to affect him.
It's interesting, though, because it feels like this has been the kryptonite for both teams, and in the same way that we can tell Kirby Smart's done with being asked about the pass rush, you could say the same thing for Hugh Freeze. So what we're going to do, we're going to play these clips for you back to back. I want to let you hear Kirby Smart on Georgia's pass rush, and then also Hugh Freeze on his offensive line.
Look, I'm excited. Put what you want. I get to watch our guys every day in practice. I watched our team have 60, 70-something third downs in 4 games before today, and I have a lot of confidence in our defensive unit, team, pass rush, coverage, third down plan. I feel good about it. I don't feel good about the stats, but again, you can't look at stats are misleading, guys. There's just not many opportunities we get. If the ball comes out before you get there, then it wasn't probably even good to rush. We should have dropped 11. So it's one of those things that you can't equate to that. Do we need to do better? We need some guys that can win one-on-one inside. Ask them why they went fast on third down, because they didn't want us to put people in there. If we were bad or I thought we had issues, they'd be begging those guys to come on the field. Hey, man, y'all send in those guys on third down. They kept us out of it by going really fast. That's a mechanism we use sometimes, because you don't want to face those guys.
They know that we lean on them and got to depend upon them, and to win these games, we got to have them execute at a high level. And I showed them some good tapes of them doing that against a Georgia team in the last couple of years where we had some success, and we got a lot of the same guys back. And so I think if we can, the last 2 weeks, some of it has been self-induced, where we put ourselves behind the chains, and hopefully we can get that corrected to be more disciplined, so that I think you'll see them be more effective if we're staying ahead of the chains.
All right, so both coaches took the opportunity to defend their guys in totally different ways to me, but this is definitely the matchup to look out for on the field tonight, Georgia's pass rush versus the Auburn offensive line. With that, I think we're going to have Dog Walk here in just a moment. You'll be able to see them come behind us, but before we do that, let's go ahead and bring in Rodrigo Blankenship, who's been with us for not just pregame, but also postgame too. Big narrative going into tonight. You're going to hear a lot about how difficult it is to play in Jordan-Hare Stadium. When you think back to your days as a player, where would you rank that in terms of the toughest places to kick in the SEC?
Jordan-Hare is an incredible environment, and it's definitely towards the top of the toughest places that I've played in. I would think that probably it's a top 3 environment for me. I think that LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn are the toughest places that I went to play in my college career. It's just an incredible environment. The fans they show up in droves. They're loud. They're ruckus the entire game. Maybe it's just the fact that the stadium is laid out in a certain way. I just feel like all of the fans are just right on top of you and really close to you. And, for whatever reason, that's just the impression that I always had in that stadium. And so it's going to be a tremendous environment, but I think that our guys are ready. They've already gone into Neyland Stadium and walked away with a win, so they can handle that environment. They can handle any environment they step into the rest of the season.
Rodrigo, man, this is obviously we've got Kirby Smart walking onto the field. Guys are looking live at Kirby. He does this every time he comes into hostile territory, like Miss Mansell said. He's going to take a lap. He's got his earbuds in. He's got some state troopers and some staffers flanking him. This is part of his process.
Something tells me that he might be listening to some Tupac. Rodrigo, I want to come back to you here. We're going to see these players come out for the dog walk in just a moment. I want to ask you about when you were a player going through the dog walk, especially coming into an opposing team stadium. What are those final thoughts that are going through your head? Are you trying to really block things out and lock in, or is there something that you're telling yourself moments before you know you're about to start getting out there and warming up?
No, it's definitely a sense of I'm trying to lock in. I'm trying to, just review all of the preparation that I've had over the course of the week and over the last couple of days when we get to the hotel the night before and then the morning of. Just trying to go over my process, review everything that I've done throughout the course of the week, and just trust that all of the preparation and work that I've put in during that time is going to allow me to have success when I step on the field and get ready for the game.
So, Rodrigo, it changes every year, every few years. I'm curious about this. When you were a Georgia Bulldog, if you had to take a heat check of the biggest rivals for your guys, your teams, the ones you wanted to get up for, the ones everybody can't wait to play in, where do you think Auburn ranked among the hierarchy or the food chain of the biggest Georgia rivals for you and your Bulldogs when you played?
I think when I was there, Auburn was 1A or 1B with them in Florida. I think that Auburn and Florida were definitely the games that we had circled as these are our biggest rivals. These are the guys that we despise the absolute most. Obviously, in 2016, we didn't do so well against Georgia Tech, but after that, from the rest of the time that I was there, we usually were able to take care of business against Georgia Tech. But really, Auburn and Florida, I think, were the two at the top of the hierarchy for us, at least when I was there.
So the line has been set at 3.5 the last time we checked. Of course, that's Georgia. A lot of people are expecting this to be a close game, whether it's a Georgia win or an Auburn win. Do you feel like this is one of those games where it could come down to a field goal for one of these two teams?
Yes, absolutely. And, every time Georgia goes to play Auburn, I feel like it's always a barn burner. It's always a tough matchup. And I think that anybody that is looking at this game and is expecting Georgia to walk out of here with a convincing win is probably kidding themselves. I think that Auburn is a really solid team. And even though their record doesn't reflect it, the two losses that they have are one-score games against very good opponents in Oklahoma and Texas A&M. So they play football in a way that allows them to stay in games. They minimize their turnovers, and that allows them to stay in pretty much any game they step on the field for. So I do expect this to be a close game, and I definitely think that a field goal or another special teams play of some kind could be the difference maker, and that's one of my keys to the game that I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit.
Rodrigo, for you, there's always talk about defensive and offensive challenges. For you, are there any offensive issues that are on your mind right now with this matchup that you're going to take a good look at?
Yeah, I think that the one thing that I'm going to look at from our offense's point of view is just making sure that Gunner is involved in the run game. I think that when we've looked at the last few games, it's been very hot and cold with how much Gunner has been involved in the ground game. I think in weeks 1, 3, and 5, he was very involved in the run game, and as a result, our offense was able to do a lot of really different things and be really efficient and productive. And then in weeks 2 and 4, he wasn't really as involved. So I want to see him consistently involved in the run game every week. And part of that is going to be on Coach Bobo to call some plays that give him an opportunity to take off with the ball. And the other part of it is going to be on Gunner to pull the ball when the defense gives him an opportunity to do so. So hopefully those two things are going to marry up tonight, and we're going to see Gunner continue to be involved, with an adequate dosage of carries for him, because he can do some damage to an opposing defense if we give him the opportunity to do that.
So believe it or not, one of the advantages that Georgia has in this game is their third down defense, which I know is crazy for Dog fans to accept, because when you think back to that Alabama game, especially that first half, it was just third down after third down after third down. But Auburn's offense has the worst third down conversion rate in the SEC. What is the expectation for the Georgia third down defense tonight?
I think the expectation for our defense tonight is to get off the field. I think that we did a little bit better job of that last week. I know that in the post-game presser, Coach Smart felt like he didn't think that was the case, but he also noted that he might have been mistaking some of those third down conversions for fourth down conversions, which was the case really late in the game. Kentucky had some fourth down plays that they ended up going for in the fourth quarter, but our third down defense last week was much improved from the week before. So I'm expecting that our defense is going to get off the field. I'm expecting that on first and second down, our defense is going to do a really good job of setting up Auburn's offense with third and medium to third and long situations. And then they're going to be a little bit more one-dimensional, obvious passing situations, and our defense is going to be able to take advantage and get off the field.
All right, so as we begin to wrap up with Rodrigo, it's time for Rodrigo's Big Rocks. Tell me the 3 things that you want to see out of the Dogs today.
Yeah, so I think that the first thing that I want to be looking at is winning the turnover battle. Auburn has done a pretty good job of taking care of the ball to this point in the year. They've only lost 1 turnover, but I believe they've gained 5, so they're at +4 on the year. So I really want to see us win the turnover battle. I want to see us take care of the ball really well today. We've given up turnovers in each of the last 2 games, so I really don't want to see that become a trend. I want to see us put a stopper in that tonight, take care of the ball, no turnovers given up, and I want to see our defense force some turnovers today and give us the win in the turnover battle. And then I also want to see a big contribution from special teams today. As we had mentioned earlier, it could come down to a field goal. And as we've seen in the last 3 weeks in a row, we have seen a missed field goal from the opposing team each of the last 3 weeks. So even if it doesn't necessarily come from, our special teams unit, it could come as a special teams play from the other side, a missed field goal or a shanked punt or something like that. Whatever the case may be, I really think we're going to need a big contribution from special teams in one way or another. Could end up being a big return, from kickoff return or punt return. Zachariah Branch is a very explosive player, and when he gets the ball in his hands, he can take off at any second. So it could be a big return. But whatever the case may be, I do think that a special teams play is going to have a big impact on this game, and I want to see that coming from our side. And then for our third key, if we get the graphic back up there. Sorry, I had a little... Oh, yeah, and then Gunner on the ground game, sorry. As we previously discussed, Gunner involved in the ground game. I want to see him consistently with the ball in his hands on the ground. He is a threat as well with the ball in his hands, so I want to make sure that we get a healthy dose of Gunner in the ground game. And I think that all 3 of these things, if we see all 3 of these today, then we're going to be real happy with the results from this game.
Hi, Rod. Those are some good ones. Let me go inside the specter of a kicker's mind right here. I know the history here about Peyton Woodring. He came into this venue 2 seasons ago struggling. He missed some kicks against South Carolina, and this was kind of his get-right game. He made some big kicks that allowed Brock Bowers to kind of walk on water later in the game. I wonder from a kicker standpoint, when you come back to a place where you had positive momentum and you had a confidence-building performance, does that help? Do you always going to have that good mojo going forward when you come back to a place like Jordan-Hare?
Yes, I think so. And Peyton has been great for us this season. He's been great really his entire career here. But I do think that when you come off of a really good game, that does give you a little bit of confidence. And that's, any specialist's greatest weapon, I think, is confidence. Knowing that you've been there and you've done that you've been able to have success in tough environments, that really goes a long way to help you to have continued success in the future. So, we know that Peyton is rock solid. He's been dialed in all season. And I really look forward to seeing him continue to do that tonight and potentially be a difference maker for us in this game.
All right, Rodrigo, so when we see you on DawgNation postgame with Brandon Adams, we'll go back over those big rocks. Hopefully all of those will end up contributing to a Georgia win tonight here at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Rodrigo, thank you for joining us. We'll see you in just a little bit.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. Go Dogs.
So here in just a minute, we're going to do some Sentell's Intel. We'll talk a lot about the Georgia offense and just behind the recruiting numbers between Georgia and Auburn. Also, we'll bring in Cody Chaffins. There's been a lot that's been happening behind us. We're trying to multitask here.
Yeah.
Cody's definitely had the best eye, so we'll bring him on. He'll tell us what he saw. We'll get to all that here in just a moment. We're going to take a short break. This is DawgNation Game Day.
Georgia faces Georgia Tech for the first time at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's a new spin on clean, old-fashioned hate. And you can be there to catch this epic rivalry at UGA's home, away from home. Good seats are still available, so make sure you're there on Black Friday, November 28th at 3:30 to see Georgia and Georgia Tech. Get your tickets now at mercedes-benzstadium.com/events. That's mercedes-benzstadium.com/events.
Hey, Dawg Nation. I'm Brandon Adams. If you love what Kaylee Mansell does here in our DawgNation GameDay pregame show, and I know you do, you'll also love our DawgNation postgame show. After every UGA home game, we're live at the UGA bookstore. And after every game, we're also available to you on the DawgNation video channels. We have video highlights, live calls, plenty of postgame reaction. Hopefully, talking about big Georgia wins each and every Saturday. The place to be after the game is on the DawgNation postgame show. We'll see you there after today's game.
Nothing makes a house feel more like a home than quality windows. So trust the professionals at Pella Window and Door of Georgia. We'll equip your home with energy-efficient windows and doors just right for you. Schedule your free in-home, no-pressure consultation. Get product samples, installation options, and a free quote. Log on to PellaGA.com and visit our new Experience Center in Duluth. Tell them Brandon Adams sent you. Pella Window and Door of Georgia, viewed to be the best.
This is DawgNation Game Day, brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors, Kroger, R.S. Andrews, and Jittery Joe's Coffee.
All right, so this is DawgNation Game Day. Welcome back, guys. A few players are starting to enter the field. I know we just saw Sokovie, White, Helton, just two guys out here right now. Hopefully the team will follow. We see Mike Bobo walking in at the moment too, which is perfect timing because I do want to talk about the Georgia offense, specifically Gunnar Stockton. When I was talking to Connor Riley earlier this week, I told him that the version of Gunnar Stockton that we saw against Kentucky is the version that we need to see of him moving forward, right in that 190-yard passing range, a little over 48 rushing yards per game, a good mix of in the air, on the ground. If he can continue to do that this season, then you've got to feel good in what you got with Gunnar Stockton.
Yeah, Kaylee, I think people are concerned about which quarterback will show more legs.
Yeah.
Is it Arnold? Is it Gunnar? I don't think Georgia needs to show more legs from Gunnar to win this football game. I think they need to show the legs from Chauncey Bowens, show the legs from Nate Frazier, show the legs from Dwight Phillips and Zachariah Branch. I think Gunnar just needs to be Gunnar, kind of do what he does. I mean, he looks more confident. Again, DawgNation, everybody's so judgmental. Everybody's so criticizing about a lot of things. This is a guy that's really still played less than half a season so far as a starter in the SEC. You see Colby Young behind us. I've seen Dylan Bell actually coming around here working out as well. So more and more Georgia Bulldogs are making their way on the field, including specialist Drew Miller and probably the best long snapper in the country, the 2-year transfer, Blake Gardner, who came to the Dogs out of UCLA.
Yeah, so Colby Young, Georgia's leading receiver on the year, but the story for this offense this far has been the Georgia run game, and maybe not in the way that we expected. Obviously, Nate Frazier having some issues with fumbling the ball, but that's really opened the door for Chauncey Bowens. Like Dwight Phillips is electric when he gets the opportunity to run the ball. Is it safe to say that we don't need to have any more concerns about this Georgia run game?
Yeah, I think what Chauncey does is really stabilize things, Kaylee. And what he does, I can't help it. This is what I hear from the fans and people that have followed the program for a lot of years. Chauncey Bowens right now looks like a typical Georgia alpha starting tailback. He's got some fear factor. He hits the hole very hard. He's got burst. And then he's also going to punish guys when he gets to the second level. I think Georgia's most of their backs, there's nothing against Nate Frazier, nothing against Dwight Phillips, but by and large, they're more scat back, more get on the outside type guys, where Chauncey looks more like a bell cow type running back. Of course, now Josh McCray's got his own little individual role as kind of a goal line short yardage specialist as well, but I think Chauncey is one of those guys that gives you a little bit of a fear factor or a little bit of excitement in terms of he's got a crease, he's got the ball, he's going to do something with it.
Yeah, it looks like old school Georgia football. I want to put my run the dang ball hat on every time I see Chauncey Bowens get out there. Now, since we have you on, I feel like it's appropriate to ask. Georgia's clearly not at home, not hosting any visitors, but something that we've been doing on our Before the Hedges show for big games is going behind the recruiting numbers and what that should tell you about the outcome on the field. It does feel like the talent gap between Auburn and Georgia is starting to close, but just based on what you know about the classes that they currently have, does Georgia have the edge just in terms of the talent they have through the recruiting ranks?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things where Georgia's perennially been the number 1 or number 2 team in the country for the last 4 or 5 years. These are the last 4 or 5 years. That's the players that are going to be out here tonight. Auburn has kind of finished somewhere around 12, 15, 18, maybe 6th, 7th in the SEC. And also some of their better players, 5-star Deuce Knight, the backup quarterback, 5-star Cam Coleman. They're not getting the juice that they want to get out of those guys right now. But I will say this, Auburn, in terms of NFL-ready, future first and second rounders, I think the most likely first rounders in this game right now are the pass rushers at Auburn, especially on their defensive front.
All right, so far just saw Brett Thorson come behind us, waiting to see who that first person was that came out. That was actually Dylan Bell, who had an incredible game against Kentucky. But when we look at the past of Dylan Bell's career, it feels like he has one really big standout game, then is kind of quiet from there on out. But just something about him being the first one on the field, it gave me chills knowing that it was him, because this is clearly somebody that's been a part of this team for a long time, understands the difficulty of playing in a place like this, and for me, it just makes sense that he was the first one out.
I think Dylan is interesting, Kaylee, because after his big game last week against Kentucky, he told me in the post-game Georgia locker room that he had been praying to be able to affect the team in a positive way, to make something good happen for his team. And really, that doesn't, with the way he said it, it did not make it feel like it was a singular purpose just for his own benefit. He just wanted to be a part of helping Georgia. And then when he made those big plays and he had those big scores, he said, man, it felt like a long time coming since he'd been able to help the Dawgs. And it's one of those careers where he had a lot of flashes. I still think back to that Tennessee game really early in his career 2 years ago. And I think you need to get Dylan back to doing what Dylan Bell has always been. Kind of a gadget guy, kind of maybe get him some looks at running back, give him some jet sweeps, give him some end around in the red zone, because Georgia gives, with the legs of Gunner, you cannot have a plan for Gunner and then have a plan for Dylan Bell on the outside as well.
All right, so I want to give a shout out to our guy, Cody Chaffins, who's been working the camera for us. I'm going to gently slide over to Cody. He's been watching everything that's been going on behind us. Cody, anything that stuck out to you this far?
No, it's been fun to watch Kirby Smart make his rounds and kind of see what he likes to see out here. Lawson Lucky just making his way out here. This is what we typically see early in the warm-up cycle, is these guys who touch the ball a lot, hopefully a lot, right? Lawson Lucky out here, some of these wide receivers, just getting the feel for things. The sun setting is going to be interesting here. It'll be down by the time we kick off, so it's not going to be a huge factor, although everybody's seeing it here. The other things I'll do, I'll switch around here, see if I can tangle all the cords up. So you got Dawgs.
It takes a village.
In this corner, and the cheerleaders got here early, put out all the red pom-poms. So you can see you get as much of a home field in this corner at least as you can. The other crazy part is it just looks like it's like Notre Dame football or like one of these newspapers. It's just like a little brick cutout where the whole team has to come through. So they almost have to file through single file. So we'll see more players kind of come out here, but it's very old school where it's just literally a hole in the brick. And here come the Dawgs out into Jordan-Hare.
All right, so can't see that many Georgia fans from where we stand right now, but did see a lot as we were walking to the stadium, out there tailgating. There is a very big Georgia presence here. I do want to talk about Lawson Lucky for a moment, though. Cody pointed out right here on the field, you can see him stretching in front of us. I mean, all around, this has been a pretty disappointing year for Georgia tight ends. It just doesn't look like they're getting the ball to them. Elias Williams, great performance against Kentucky, but I feel like the bar was set much higher for Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky, now taking on big blocking roles. But I do feel like this could finally be the night where maybe we see some more tight end production just in terms of pass catching.
I mean, obviously that tight end is a quarterback's best friend, but you look at it, I put it all together, Kaylee, computing what Georgia's tight end room looked like this year. And I think they've got like 12 catches for 180 yards and one score. Kaylee, in the great days of the number 19 legend, Brock Bowers, that was almost a game or maybe a game and a half for him. You see Noah Thomas right now walking by.
That's your client.
Folks, one of the things Auburn fans, this was actually asked on the SEC media teleconference on Wednesday. One of the Auburn reporters asked, where will Noah Thomas's usage be? Will he be in the lineup? The reason why they asked that question is last year against Texas A&M, when Noah was the number one receiver for Texas A&M, he had a huge explosive 75, 85-yard touchdown catch that was a big play in that game. And they're wanting to know how much of a presence Noah Thomas has in this Georgia offense. Kaylee, right now, not a lot, not much to report. But if he's ever going to get right, tonight would be a good night to do that.
It feels like a lot of Georgia fans are rooting for that to happen, not just because of the talent that he has, but it feels like he's finally due up for a game. Just came into a situation where he plays the same position as Colby Young. Colby Young's been with the program longer, but Noah Thomas's time is coming. And what we're going to do here in just a moment, we're going to go through our stats that would satisfy, but really quick, want to give a shout out to Kroger, who always is in charge of our dog walk. They're your MVP for all tailgates this football season, from chips and snacks to cold drinks for cheersing. I saw a lot of that on the way here today. Or those party trays, just to make it an easy week. Go to Kroger for all those tailgate needs. You can do that by visiting your local Kroger or online at Kroger.com. Or if you just want to have all those things delivered to your house, then make sure you sign up for Kroger.com/boost. Okay, so we did this last week. It was so much fun. It ended up being one of my favorite parts of creating the show. I'm calling it satisfying stats. Last week it was results over process. You know,
I heard that.
Wink, wink.
I heard that a few times this week.
So me and Jeff both put our input into this. I'll give you my first one. I want to see Georgia score on the first drive. Go ahead and take some of that pressure off of yourself. I know that feels like so much to ask of this Georgia team, but if I feel like if they can do it here, keep going tempo, get the momentum swinging your way in this atmosphere, can only mean good things. Also would like to see 208 rushing yards or more, which would be the second most that anybody's put on this Auburn defense this year. For the defense, I just want to see 3 sacks. That would be the team high for this regular season so far. And oh my gosh, if it's South Carolina, I believe, that had what, like 6? Georgia should be able to do at least half that, right? So, and then just hold Auburn to less than 100 rushing yards. Oh, hi. Excuse me, that was not South Carolina. I'm thinking about Kentucky last week. But I want to see them hold Auburn to less than 100 rushing yards in every single game that Auburn has lost. They have not broke that 100 rushing yard mark. So for me, score on the first drive, go for over 208 rushing yards. That doesn't feel like a big ask. At least 3 sacks on the day to tie the regular season high, and then less than 100 rushing yards for the Auburn Tigers.
It's a nice little menu there, Kaylee.
Yeah, it's fun.
I think you ordered like the appetizer, the entree, and then dessert in terms of your satisfying stats for Saturday night in Jordan-Hare.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that the one that feels like I'm asking the most of is just for Georgia to score on the first drive at this point. So with that, we've heard enough of me. Jeff, we'll go to your satisfying stats. Walk me through it.
So, Kaylee, something's got to give in this one. And what I mean by that is Auburn is averaging giving up like 80 yards per carry, 88 yards per game with their rushing defense. Georgia is averaging something like 160 yards, 170 yards on the ground. I think Georgia needs to stack up 175 rushing yards. Turnovers is my second one, Kaylee, because I think that is just so big. The way you open the door for a roster that's not as talented as you to win a game on their own home turf is you give them the ball, you lose your possessions, you lose your opportunities to score. As you see Ryan Puglisi, Gunnar Stockton, and Georgia's quarterback room make their way onto Jordan-Hare. Also 5.3 yards per carry. The defense has got to make sure they hold Auburn back on that because that's what they've been used to all year. And the main one for me, Kaylee, this is the one which is like the creme brulee or the very most important stat, is Singleton and Coleman. They're the type of receivers, either one of them could have a monster 150-yard game. Right now, they're both averaging about 110 yards receiving combined for the game. The Dawgs just don't need to have either one of them go off. Contain them, keep them around 70 yards per for both of them, and that keeps Auburn's offense very one-dimensional where you don't have to worry about them feeding those 2 exclamation point big play type receivers.
Yeah, I think that less than 2 turnovers is one I feel like I could also add to my list because surprisingly one of the things that Auburn does well despite the 21 sacks is holding on to the ball. Don't have that many turnovers this year, partially due to the fact that Jackson Arnold has not thrown a single interception. We've got more players entering the field. Jeff mentioned you see the 2 quarterbacks, Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi. Had a chance to just get a look at Gunnar. Same demeanor, super calm. It feels like he's been here before, even though he has never probably been in a position like this despite maybe Tennessee, but coming into a night environment for a guy who knows what he's about to go up against, it's that same heart rate, that same calm face, looks like he's locked in.
You know, all the stories came out about the hose game, right? Our colleague, Cody Chafin's ripped through the pages of Time, the newspaper pages of Time this week, and the hose game. I'm sure a lot of Dog Nation knows this, but Gunnar Stockton's grandfather was actually on the field for that hose game.
Yeah.
He actually got to visit the local jail because he was jailed back in 1986 when the Dog fans shocked Auburn, Wayne Johnson, and then the Auburn people turned the hoses on the Georgia fans that had stormed the field and celebrating. Guys, you also see a milling of Georgia's staff and coaches. Just a moment ago, you saw wide receivers coach James Coley right there front and center in your camera shot. As we've mentioned many, many times, that's a unit that really has to play well tonight. And one other thing, Kaylee,
sure.
We got so many keys. This would be one of those sick and tired of stats. It seems like every quarterback Georgia plays this year
looks their Super Bowl moment.
It looks like they're getting on the Heisman contenders list every week. Georgia used to make great quarterbacks look off their game and harassed And now each and every week so far this season, whether it's Aguilar, whether it's Simpson, whether it's the Kentucky quarterback last week, quarterbacks are getting off to good starts. Quarterbacks are having great stat lines, moving the ball, converting third downs early. And that is a very non-Georgia type stat. And this young man that is about to eclipse your screen right here, coming in off the left side. Coming off, you can't miss him. That is Elias Williams. 4 catches last week for 71 yards.
Instantly recognizable. I want to go back to one thing you said. I could not agree more. It feels like every opponent that Georgia has, their quarterback just rises from the ashes like a phoenix and plays their best game. That's what concerns me a little bit about Texas coming up. However, one thing that we have yet to mention is the fact that Auburn is coming off of a bye week. Georgia is not. They've had 2 weeks to prepare and rest up. So especially when it comes to the quarterback play from Jackson Arnold, is there any concern about Auburn coming off that bye week and just having the rest advantage?
I think it's probably what Georgia's used to. There have been many years, lots of beat writers gripe and complain about this, Kaylee, where Georgia, some of their seasons, they catch 5 teams that have a week to prepare. Like, Georgia's just really used to this by now. I think what it does, if anything, is it helps to offset the talent gap a little bit between Georgia and a lot of these teams. Kaylee, let's be honest. That may be a bye week to prepare, but really what it is in this point of the season is it is a chance to rest, because everybody in the conference is about 90 to 95% at best, maybe 85%. Everybody's got a nick, everybody's got a bruise, everybody's got something they're dealing with at this point of the year. And really that bye week allows guys to get ready physically.
All right, so you keep mentioning these keys. We could have a million of them, but you and I picked one each, so we're going to do that right now with Kaylee's keys. It's funny because I think that yours and I's are pretty similar, Jeff. Just a little bit of a different verbiage, a few different reasonings. For me, you got to eliminate the Auburn passing threat. Really hasn't been there so far this season anyway, but they certainly haven't been running the ball well, and that's typically the Auburn standard. Really missing out from Jarquez Hunter. So just go ahead and take out that Auburn passing threat, generate the pressure versus Jackson Arnold. We know that he's willing to take the sacks. If Georgia can do that, I think they'll be advantageous today. Also, lock down Coleman and Singleton. This is 2 opponents that Georgia's familiar with as is, have played Eric Singleton when he was at Georgia Tech. Also, they know what Cam Coleman is capable of because, well, you know what? They recruited him, and he had such a tremendous season. So just go ahead and take out those 2 guys. Force Auburn to do it on the ground, which is, again, something that they haven't done well this year. So for me, it's all about putting the pressure on Jackson Arnold, taking away that pass game, force them to do what they haven't been doing well all season.
You know, one other fear factor I have in mind, Kaylee, since we're talking about the script of this game, good news, bad news, whatever. There's a running back for Auburn that's looked pretty good, Jeremiah Cobb. He's out of Montgomery, Alabama. He's probably been their best running threat weapon right now outside of the breakaway plays from Jackson Arnold, and that was the guy the Dawgs really wanted. Dale McGee was rooting him late. He had that stamp of being good enough to play for Georgia. He decided to stay home back in the Dale McGee area, and you really see a guy like that. He's going to have an impact on this game, I think, as well.
I'm a firm believer in great minds think alike. I would group you and me into that category, Jeff, because your key of the night also affect Jackson Arnold. Walk me through it.
Yeah, I think you've got to just change his launch point a lot. Obviously, he's holding on the ball. He's heard a lot of that. One of the things you got to do is, if you can't sack him, which I think every Georgia fan would love it if they have 5 sacks, but what if those are the only 5 or 6 times you really affect Jackson Arnold? I don't think that's going to go well for the Dawgs. You got to have him consistently thinking about footsteps. Another thing is you got to make sure those sacks eventually come. Chris Cole, hard to believe, he's the team leader with 3. I think guys like Quintavious Johnson are coming on as well. And another guy that I think is ready to make an impact. He got a lot of love on social media this week as you see Josh McCray come onto the field. Yep. That was Christopher C. Jones as an edge rusher. DawgNation friend of the program, David Bellamy. He was shouting out 28 this week. Watching him get to the ball, work rate for number 28 as well. And also, Dog fans, you can't help but look, a little bit of glimpse of the future. There's Ryan Montgomery warming up right there, quarterback. Behind him is Ryan Puglisi as well. So this is how you're right here in enemy territory, and you're seeing how the Dogs get ready for a big one.
And you mentioned the affecting of Jackson Arnold. Remember that viral picture of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning at halftime of the Georgia-Texas game last year? I want to see a very similar picture of Jackson Arnold, in this case, being terrified of that Georgia defense. See the specialists come in. You've got Brett Thorson. So glad to have him back on this team. I feel like the locker room just has a better culture and a presence with him in it. But I have high expectations for the Georgia pass rush. I know that's been the weak part of this Georgia defense this far, along with some really weak cornerback play this far. But tonight, going up against the Auburn offensive line, I mean, something's got to give, and it's got to be tonight.
Kaylee, one of the things, man, you see a lot of people are reacting to that Oregon score right now, and all Dog Nation are watching it. Indiana currently holds the lead, but one of the things I want to add in the commentary about Jackson Arnold, it's been a couple of years ago. He originally went to Oklahoma, but he was a former 5-star as well. One of the best quarterbacks in the country. He was an Under Armour All-American. I watched him at the Under Armour game after his senior year, and he's one of those guys you knew you'd see again in the SEC, especially at a place like Oklahoma and now at Auburn.
So one person that I don't think that we've had the chance to see yet, Cody, and if he has been out here, let me know. I'm looking for Zachariah Branch. Okay, you've got Janelle Aguero, Dalen Everett coming out, but I'm looking for Zachariah Branch just because maybe he's the Brock Bowers of tonight. Maybe he's the one that you continue to give the ball to when all things go wrong. I know nobody's ever going to replace Brock Bowers, but if there's anybody on this team that has the singular talent to be able to turn a game around, it's Zachariah Branch, because every time you put the ball in his hands, there's a chance that he's going to score.
Kelly, you know what I want to see? I want to see the Vanilla's been pretty good so far with Zachariah Branch. I want to see a little Neapolitan maybe a little bit, or a little Rocky Road or mint chocolate chip. What I mean by that is a lot of what Zachariah Branch has showed so far has been screens, quick passes, maybe get him a little loose a little bit downfield a little bit, maybe try a little bit more with him, maybe in the run game, maybe as a true running back. Also, you see all these dogs coming across the field. There's the big Elias Williams right there. Kaylee, one of the things we've heard for the last few weeks prior to that Kentucky game was Elias Williams was really coming on in the passing game, and then you see it come to fruition against Kentucky. What if the Dogs find there? That guy is a matchup problem anywhere you look, Kaylee. 6'7", 250. One other thing, guys, he was a 3-time All-State basketball player.
I don't think it was a fluke at all that Elias Williams got the ball so early in that Kentucky game. I think that was foreshadowing that he's a guy that Kirby really likes what he does in practice, because we see that rewarded in games like this. So expect to see more of Elias Williams. But we also saw Jaden Riddell along with Lawson Lucky and Elias Williams. I feel like a lot of people expected Jaden Riddell to have that breakout season this far. Is he maybe just doing more of a role that doesn't get talked about, or is he not out there as much as we thought he would be at this point in the season?
So, Kaylee, that's a good point. What happened last week is you saw early first, second drive snaps and reps for Jaden Riddell, I think for the first time in his Georgia career. Now, you earn those reps by what you do in practice. And I want to say this for all the tight end talk right now, Kaylee. This was supposed to be the year that Lucky broke out. It was supposed to be Delp's elevator year to the NFL. You also wanted to see Riddell come along, and also the true freshman. Remember, Ethan Barbour started the first game in an H-back look. So it's really hard to get all those laurels and to get all those press clippings and get all that buzz for such a talented tight end room. You saw Oscar Delp last week. He's about to catch one right now. Oscar showed off. He still has great speed. When he was out racing, it looked like 4 or 5 thoroughbreds from Kentucky down for a big explosive play.
All right, so we'll continue to talk about what we see on the field here in a minute. There is something that you asked Rodrigo Blankenship that I want to extend the same question to you. Where do you put Auburn on the Mount Rushmore of Georgia rivals?
Oh, well, you got to go historically. They're going to be up there probably 1, 2, or 3 because it's the Deep South's oldest rivalry. They've been playing each other since 1892. They played in Columbus. They played in Atlanta. They've played all over, and you've had fire hoses games. Georgia's coaches Georgia's great players have went to go coach at Auburn. Auburn's great players and coaches have came to coach at Georgia. They're very much intertwined. I think you got to start with Florida. I think most historically, I would say Tech comes next, and then you probably flow in Auburn. But as of right now, it's more of a heat check right now. Right now, today's fans probably going to think Alabama, Florida up at the top. They might mix in, those teams that Georgia hasn't beaten all the time, which becomes a rivalry, Kaylee, but they've literally beaten everyone in this Kirby Smart era. One thing to think about, this is what we were talking about in the drive over the state line here to Auburn today, Kaylee, was every time a Kirby Smart team has gotten beat, with very rare exceptions, it has been to a superior elite quarterback. Think about that for a second. You see Tyler Simpson. You see over through the years the Joe Burrows, the Bryce Youngs, the Jalen Milrose, the Tua Tagovailoas, the Jalen Hurts, on and on and on. It's always been an elite future NFL guy, Kyle Trask, that has beaten them.
Yeah, as you mentioned, when you look back at this rivalry under Kirby Smart, he's 3-1 at Auburn. Last loss was in 2017. For me, it's been a different story. Growing up in the northwest part of the state, I always viewed Tennessee to be a big rival, but just being in this role, being in this position, I think that's made me realize how important the Auburn rivalry is to a lot of Georgia fans. We've got some players walking our way. So many historical moments that come with this game, and I thought our very own Cody Chavis did a really good job of piecing this together. So why don't we go ahead and take a look back at some of the history involved with the Deep South's oldest rivalry.
The Deep South's oldest rivalry. A matchup that's been making headlines since 1892. From 8,000 watching at Piedmont Park to 39 battles in Columbus.
Frank Sinkwich, Georgia's record-breaking ground gainer.
The names: Frank Sinkwich,
Bulldogs celebrating as we whipped Auburn by the score.
Vince Dooley, Herschel Walker.
And Auburn has been stopped at the 42.
The iconic moments: sugar falling out of the sky.
Now the fire hoses are coming out.
Between the hoses.
And time runs out on Auburn.
Old Lady Luck.
He almost gets bit by Uga.
The images. 65 Bulldog victories.
In their black jerseys.
And some write themselves.
There you go. There's the headline tomorrow.
In a new age of college football, this tradition matters. And so do the storylines yet to be written.
So in the spirit of this game, I went back and watched Between the Hoses. I had to get in the spirit for it, but now being here, that's not an issue. Watching these Georgia players, they seem so locked in, and you know me, I'm a witchy woman. I get gut feelings, and all week I've just had a weird gut feeling about this game, but I guess my gut is always for sale because being here, there's something about this Georgia team and the energy that they're radiating that makes me feel a little bit better about what's to take place. I think if they get up early, stay ahead, they're going to be in the driver's seat this entire game, and by no means do I think that this is going to be a blowout. It's going to be a hard-fought game. A lot of it's going to be done in the trenches, but Georgia's got the talent advantage. This should be a W for them. Don't let Auburn be the team that sets you back for the rest of the season. I don't know, Jeff, just being here in Jordan-Hare, I've got a weirdly good feeling that I may end up regretting. I don't know.
Kaylee, I think that's what you're doing this is what's called the eyeball test.
Yeah.
And when they come off the bus, you see Georgia's roster, which is pound for pound, as talent-laden, size, height, speed, conditioning as it gets in the SEC, which means as it gets in college football. You see some Auburn guys walking around in street clothes or in their shorts and workout gear, and it doesn't look quite the same. It also looks like a dialed-in and focused Georgia team that's used to playing in big games like this.
Well, you know, the one advantage that Georgia's always going to have over anybody is their head coach, Kirby Smart, the best coach active in college football, and he's been in so many of these situations. He knows how to talk to his team, get them ready, make them feel like the underdog even though they're favored in this game. So I think he's a really big part of the calmness that we get from the guys on the field with that eyeball test that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, one of those things, Kirby's played in more games on this field as a player at Georgia, as a coach at Georgia, as a coach at Alabama. He's got his master's degree in coming into Jordan-Hare and sneaking out with a win. I mean, everybody's going to look. I didn't know, Kaylee, Witchy Woman was one of your aliases, but I know DawgNation wants an alias to this game, and that's an HBTFD after this one.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the Eagles, but not the War Eagles. All right, Jeff, one thing that you're really good about doing is giving us one last piece of intelligence. Nobody does it better than you. Final thought.
Kaylee, I just think this is a game. I liked how you had the moment about, you wanted to find somebody to ride on offense and somebody to go to convert a lot of things. Kaylee, I think defensively, this is where Georgia kind of bows up and hunkers down a little bit. I think this is a game defensively where Georgia gains some of that momentum, gets a little bit of that swagger, shows some sharp teeth a little bit, and they hunker down and they really stifle Auburn tonight.
All right, DawgNation, so that's going to be it for us. We've asked for forgiveness, not permission to be on the field, so we want to make sure that we're respectful. We thank you so much for joining us. Always love to have Jeff and Cody on the road with me. We'll see you guys right after the game for DawgNation postgame with our very own Brandon Adams, and just because I'm here in enemy territory, I will give you a one last Go Dogs.